I think that's the only way how people would stop perceiving it as something that is detrimental to them as a person. But even in academia, I don't think merit goes a long way. Network goes a longer way than merit. Science happens in between life, and it's not the other way around. This very strange thing that happened, I think, sometime last year, where there were like a bunch of scientists who wrote a petition saying that, hey, like AI is growing too wildly, too fast. They are not like your usual cameras, more like how the eye works. Write a thing saying that IISER Pune is not responsible for any of the issues that arises. Then they were fine.
So, hello everyone to another episode of the Transition State podcast, where I invite people who are going through their transition phase from college life into various career aspects, specifically more focusing on research. So, today I have with me someone who is working on a research field that is everywhere. You can hear about it, that is artificial intelligence. But her specific specialty is in neurosciences. So her field of research and the project she is doing now is trying to combine how an actual biological brain works and combine that into AI systems to improve their efficiency in terms of the energy consumed. So it's going to be a very crucial research and has a lot of future aspects to it. So I would like to invite an IISER Pune alumni. She did her master's thesis at KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden, and then is now an RA at Forschungszentrum Jülich in Germany. So I'd like to welcome Harini Sudha.
Hi, thanks for having me. That was a very nice introduction.
Okay, thank you. I hope this German pronunciation was correct.
Yeah, that was also pretty good actually.
Okay.
Forschungszentrum Jülich. Yeah.
Yes. So I'd like to start off with for someone who's not in the context of research, what exactly is an RA position? What is it? What do you do in part of it?
So I think RA. So the full form of RA is a research assistant, right? So which is like way more common in the West, like in the US and Europe, compared to like India, where usually people hop on to positions from masters to PhD and so on. It's basically a time where you can like engage in full-time research and know what areas of research you like, or whether even if you want to do a PhD, which is like a commitment of doing research for 3 to 5 years. So this is like a short time where either you can improve your skills on very specific area that you want to do, or you think you want to do your PhD or later research career in, or like if you want to like change fields. So this is a great place to change fields. So personally for me, it was because I was not very sure if I wanted to jump right into the kind of research I was doing during my master's thesis, and I wanted to be more applied towards AI as well. During this research position time, I've picked up a lot of AI skills, which is like really hot right now, and also like keeps me on my toes, so which is nice.
So it kind of opens up avenues in both academia, pure academia, and also into industry and jobs.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
other kind.
So the industry prospects is also very good, but there's always this thing when you are in academic research, taking that one step into industry is always like, no matter what kind of research you do, is going to be a little bit difficult, because like you are someone who has no experience being in industry. So for the industry people to like hire you, you would really need to market yourself. So it's not like a cakewalk, but probably easier than someone who's doing astrophysics. Yeah.
Okay. So coming to the science side of it, science research
Yeah.
aspect. So what exactly do you work on? How do you combine? You said your background is in neurosciences, but your work is also involving AI. So how do you combine both? Maybe you can start by giving a background on things and then moving into your specific research topic.
Okay. So when I was at IISER Pune, I was like really into neuroscience, right? So my my idea of what I wanted to do in neuroscience is basically to understand intelligent systems. Like, how does intelligence work? What kind of perspectives you can have? So I tried out a lot of things like cognitive science, which is like a very uh, like a whole systems approach of looking at things, different ways of tackling this problem. And then I realized that, oh, okay, maybe it's not enough to just understand them. Maybe we want to build some systems so we can like uh, understand in principle how things happen when you build them. So which is why I was like attracted a little more towards the engineering side of things. So which means I would still say that uh, for me, as if I self-proclaim myself as a neuroscientist, I still want to understand and build intelligent systems. And I got into this area called neuromorphic computing, which also has similar interests as what I was wanting to do. And I got into it during my master's thesis. So at that point, uh, my idea was, okay, how can we take inspirations from the brain and apply it to some real life system? And that's exactly what neuromorphic computing does. So what they do is, at least what the field tries to do, is take principles from the brain. It's just not like we want to make a whole brain and make it function, because that is not really possible or like feasible, I would say.
Hmm.
Although you can study like large connectivity networks and so on from like building a real sized brain or whatever, but that's not the whole point. Is to take just some principles from neuroscience. For example, how synapses in the brain are organized. So synapses are just connectivity between neurons, right? So how are they
Hmm.
organized, or what kind of communication happens between two neurons? And you just take these principles and you try to implement them on hardware, which is very different from how a computer does things, right? So a computer has like a separate region where you can store your memory, and the actual work that happens is in uh, another part of the system, and the retrieval that happens actually takes time. So
Hmm.
in the brain, there is like no lag between like where the memory is stored and where the action actually happens. So it goes hand in hand. So people were really inspired to like make this happen locally. Like every neuron in the brain tries to like do its own little computation and has its own little memory, and as a whole network it gives rise to like more emergent behaviors. So that's the whole inspiration, I would say. And the field itself is not very old. So somewhere in the 70s or something like that, there were a couple of people from Caltech who are like, oh, like we want to like build some devices that mimic the brain. And now we have like a really cool field which like is almost parallel and can very soon converge with like AI advances that's going on right now.
Um,
Yeah,
Out of curiosity, you said about mapping the
yeah,
brain. How do you
yeah.
like see the physical synapses and joining within like a, say, a human brain or something? Like how do you map it out? If you like have a brain, how do you see where the connections are and so on?
So you mean in terms of like on the hardware, or like you mean in general, how does the
In a
mapping
biological
work?
brain, how do you see,
Okay.
like, say, when you have a thought,
Um,
does it take a particular path, or do you have like maps of what connects with what and so on?
so it's difficult because like you can't look at a whole brain and like figure out what is happening, because like it's
Right.
very hard to analyze. But what people do is like just take like one thin cross section of one particular part of the brain. For example, if you want to see what happens when like light enters the eye and how the visual pathway is there. So there are some I think chemical receptors that you can like inject, which actually like travel and connect your different neurons. Like basically it's like a ink which will ink uh, whatever is being excited, like how action potential is traveled between neurons. So that does not tell us a lot, actually. You can't do this for like everything and figure out, okay, now we have an architecture of the brain. So way more complicated than that. And I think a lot of efforts have been done so far, at least I know, is that we know the whole connectome. So it's called a connectome, right? So the whole connectome of C. elegans is known, and very recently, this was like a huge nature thing. People found it for a fruit fly, the whole
Hmm.
connectome of a fruit fly. And there are like a lot of people who apply machine learning to understand neuroscience, who now that we know the connectome, right, we know what kind of constraints exist in certain networks of the brain. So they take these constraints and then they give these constraints to the AI models. So
Hmm.
it's called connectome constrained models. And then you can figure out what are the parameters that are required for this particular network of the brain, for example, for vision, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then you can do experiments to figure out, okay, is it really true that this is the network that is responsible for these behaviors? And then you can also like your model you can tune as much as you want, or you can do crazy stuff, right? So
Right.
people have done these crazy stuff, and they have also seen that hey, the model is doing this, and we can also verify this with experiments. So which is pretty cool. Like
Okay.
that is like the
So
most recent thing that I have seen for connectomes. And yeah.
if now that you say that the fly's connectome is known, understood, is there a does this mean that we can see a direct trace of, say, a fly wants to flutter its wing, we can see the whole pathway that takes that makes that decision happen, or it's just a broad overview of this happens maybe in this section of the brain, maybe over here, or something like that?
So when I mean a connectome is we just know what are the different types of neurons and what it is connected to. We still don't know how exactly to probe each network that is responsible for something. So you can
Okay.
only hope that, hey, I want to like make the leg of the fly move, and I am going to do this thing. And then you can see what is happening. It's like it's going to be like a chaos of behavior that is happening in the brain, right? Like it's it's not it's not so straightforward to just see, okay, now I will draw lines and connect all the neurons. It is just not going to be like that. uh, which is why I think a lot of machine learning approaches are there, because there are a lot of hidden structures in these networks that are like not very apparent to the human modeler's eye, might be more accessible through machine learning techniques.
Hmm. So, in your current research project in Germany, how are you implementing the AI model? Like, how are you connecting both the research fields together?
Yeah, so the way so right now what I was telling you about was how people use machine learning to get more insights into neuroscience, but that is not exactly what we do, what I do, or in general what neuromorphic people want to do. They want to do we want to do something like take inspirations and make existing systems better, like existing artificial systems and so on, right? So what I have been working a lot on is on perception systems. So during my master thesis, I got into working with these devices called event cameras, and during that time, the benefits, I would say, like for focusing on perception systems, is like current AI models are not, they require a lot of power, like to make certain actions happen, and you can't get real time feedback very easily. Like you might see like very cool like Boston Dynamics robot dogs doing things, but like if you see, they would have been trained on really huge GPUs and like a lot of compute, and then all that you see on the model is going to be like a very condensed version, which is able to just run. So it's not something where, it was using less power and actually being learned on the go and so on. That's what we want to do with with trying to optimize the hardware and the software together, right? So so during my master thesis, like I told you, I was working with these event cameras, and they are not like your usual cameras, more like how the eye works. Um, so when you have a normal camera, you would like have frames, and you would say, okay, the best camera that I can have is when the one that has like the most frames per second. But like for event cameras, there's no concept of frames. What you actually detect is changes that happen in a scene, which is what our eye also does. Like you don't see
So there's no
frame by frame or
sorry to,
something like that.
sorry to interrupt. There's no
Exactly.
shutter. Okay. So
Yeah. So
how
there's no
does
shutter effect.
it
So
change
in the
with
eye,
different?
like, yeah. So like I'll tell you about the eye, right? First. So in the eye, and you've seen probably like some pop science videos where there's like a video going on, and there's like a bear that is in the video that is randomly introduced, but you would not really notice the bear until like the end of the video where someone is like, oh, there was a bear and you did not notice it,
Yeah.
right? So those kind of things happen because like we pay attention to only things that are like really fast moving or very engaging in terms of color or brightness and so on. So which means like everything else is stationary or does not matter, which means we can like take in a lot of information in a condensed form, and we don't have to like process redundant information again and again in terms of the eye. So that's what like the idea with event cameras was, is you only detect the changes, and the uh, I would say the semiconductors that are in this device, right? So they would only respond to changes in brightness, which is somewhat related to I would say how uh, the brightness receptors in the eye is,
Hmm.
and which means
Retina.
there's no like upper limit of how much you can process. You just have to figure out how to process this spatio-temporal information that you get from these
Okay.
event cameras, right? So it's like a stream that you get, which is like imagine like for one instance you're going to get information of, hey, this change happened at this xy coordinate in my camera frame, and at this particular time it happened, and you would get information about whether the brightness increased in the scene or it decreased in the scene. So and you can do whatever you want with this, and you have all the information with just this small condensed piece of information. So that's what I was trying to do, is like make sense of the stream of information and how you can like do more perception tasks with this kind of information. So for my master thesis, I was trying to just do things like detect lines, which is like one of the most basic building blocks for bigger systems to, for example, for a robot to avoid obstacles, or if you want to just detect shapes, that is like fundamental for identifying objects and so on. So yeah, so that was that.
So your specific work focuses on the coding side of things, or is it like with the hardware as well, like building an event camera itself and related to that?
Um, no, so I focus more on the algorithms that are necessary for uh, processing this information, but also might have to work sometimes with the hardware, like not the hardware of the camera, but like I told you, we want to like develop hardware that this information runs on. So like during my thesis, I also worked with this special brain inspired board, as we call it. It's called Spinnaker, if anyone is interested. So So this was like a side project of the Human Brain Project initiative, where people wanted to like have some like small like very local computation boards where you have a very small chip which acts as a single neuron, and you have multiple such neurons, and you can program what is the connectivity between these neurons and run algorithms on it. So it's like your plug and play piece of hardware which might be able to show you small networks of the brain running on it. So I was trying to like implement my very simple perception system that we get from these cameras onto this board. So yeah, little bit hardware, but mostly like uh, dealing with just algorithms for the hardware as
Right. One thing related to event cameras is that do you also perceive, so in the eye we have these cone cells, rod cells, and there's a color and sensitivity and all that, right? There's differences. Has it reached to a point where you can see differences in color and so on, or it's just the brightness, which
No,
part is bright,
there are
is changing?
multiple cameras where you can also see like there's also the option of in like RGB colors that is also
Okay.
there. So like I told you, there's XY, there's time, there's like brightness change, and there's also like the extra component of brightness. That's not bright, sorry, color. So those
Okay.
are slightly more expensive, of course. So if it doesn't benefit your task, like for identifying obstacles, you don't really need color. So you
Hmm.
don't need color if you want to do that particular thing. But if it requires color, then you go for the slightly fancier cameras that exist. And it's actually, you can buy it in the market. Like it's
Oh,
grown to
okay.
a point where it's like commercial, and like big players like Sony also like make these kind of cameras now. So
Okay.
yeah.
So a typical day of research, how does it look? You're mostly coding and you can work from anywhere kind of setup.
Yes. So since I only work on uh, algorithms or like the computational part, typical day looks not just coding, of course. There's a lot more to we to figure out on what kind of ideas make sense to apply on code. And actually, I think one of the biggest bottlenecks I have faced is to make it work on this specific kind of hardware that I was talking to you about, right? Because it's easy to run a code on just existing like a computer, like a CPU or a GPU, but like making it run on special hardware, you have to like really get down dirty with how things are, and you might have to also physically reset these boards and try out things. For instance, so um, which means like you do have remote access, and I personally prefer sometimes to work remotely,
Hmm.
and there's also the social aspect of trying to troubleshoot things, which is easier when you're there in person. So I think that's the biggest advantage of not being fully remote. Although it's not a big problem if you are fully remote, at least in
Hmm.
the research groups that I have worked in. But it's always nice to like be part of a research community, and your research is just faster if you're in person.
Yes. Yeah, you can discuss and
Yeah,
analyze things, clear doubts, and so on.
exactly. Yeah.
Where do you see this research field moving in like the next few years? Like, what kind of new cool things that might come out of it? Because it's AI is already out there, so with this adding to
Yeah.
it, what could be
So,
new stuff?
so like I was telling you, like so far I was telling you about very simple things, right? Like how can we detect lines and so on. But it's like I think that's just like my little thing that I did for my thesis, which is not very, it's not going to make the biggest impact and so on, right? So the field itself is trying to actually also combine aspects of AI systems with it, because like one of the things that they focus on is like how to power efficiently do things, and something that AI systems right now uh, uh, don't. We spend like so much money to like, not we, I mean like people like OpenAI or
Hmm.
DeepMind, they spend so much resources like yeah. So if you do have computation which is like of lower cost and so on, it would be a lot more accessible to a lot of people. And we would also see it like, for example, now we have mobile phones. Like think of it of the during the time when, you know, computers was a luxury, where, you know, you
Hmm.
had to book computer time back in the day, and
Yes.
then it took like a whole giant room, and then people figured out how to like make semiconductors smaller, and now we have these tiny devices. So I feel like neuromorphic computing might be one of the solutions, not the solutions, where, you know, you can actually make these power efficient systems. So I would say another promising avenue would probably be quantum computing. But like quantum computing is still like, for example, my prof used to do quantum computing before. At least like he studied quantum computing, and then he transitioned from a physicist to neuromorphic computing. And in his experienced view is that quantum computing is still having to do a lot more with how to build your quantum computer and make it stable and so on, the hardware. But like neuromorphic computing already has a lot of these aspects in place. So like
It's
one
more
of the things
directly
that I have
inspired from nature.
also
It's more directly inspired from nature.
it's not
Sorry.
directly inspired, but I would say we did not have to like build everything from scratch. Like we could
Right.
use already existing advances in like things going on right now. We didn't have to like figure out how to like make a qubit stable or something like that, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
yeah, so that means like slightly more possible that in the next 10-20 years you might see it more mainstream than like quantum actually having real time applications. And yeah, so which is why I think this one year that I've been a research assistant, I've also been looking at ways to combine AI with recent advances in neuromorphic computing. So I would
Hmm.
say like AI is going really fast right now, the field advancement, because there's a lot of smart people there, lot of resources, lot of money. And I would say neuromorphic computing has like a small fraction of whatever is going on in terms of manpower, everything, right?
Hmm.
So I would say maybe we could use the existing advancements in AI to make neuromorphic systems more compatible, and vice versa. So that's what currently I've been trying
So
to
actively involve it
do.
more into the system, so it'll be like a positive feedback loop that people use it, then it
Exactly.
gets
Yeah,
improvements.
exactly.
So, right.
Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
if you can like translate something to a language that someone else understands, it would be more approachable and so on.
Right. Yeah. So moving slightly away from your research
Yeah.
itself, because AI is such a hot topic even amongst the general public, there is so much perceptions about AI itself. So I wanted to ask two things. One is like, oh no, AI is going to destroy us, kind of doomsday kind of perception that public has towards it. And the other is kind of the ethics surrounding, like, if AI gets more and more human, like, does it become a human or something like that? It's much more long term, but someone who's close to the field, what do you have to say regarding these things? Like, are we anywhere close to thinking all this? It's all just hype, nothing to worry about.
Okay. Someone who's close to the field, I would say there's a lot of things we still can't do. It's just like the things that you see that is advertised on videos is like one thing that sort of worked and people are like very hyped about it. But I'm saying like right now there's a lot of things that do work. Like for
Hmm.
example, the recent one with Manus is really very nice. Many of the things in that particular model works. But I would say the race for something called artificial general intelligence is on. Like people treat it as like a real race. Who's going to do it in the next 5 years? In the next 10 years, we will have something. It is on. But it also doesn't mean that it's going to be like doomsday, right? Um the so personally, I feel like there will be a lot of jobs that will be lost because of this, but which also means if you are able to like educate like people, like public and also children, if you're able to educate them on like how you can use AI as a tool to help you and do things, it would actually just create different types of jobs. Like back in the day, how like being a photographer meant you needed to know how to like operate a complex camera and then like print it out and do the, I think, black and white
Red
inversion or
room,
whatever and
red
so on.
room thing.
Yeah, all of that stuff. But now it's like everyone has a camera, everyone can basically take a photograph, but everyone is not a photographer. So same thing with like, even if there's like a AI chatbot which can write code, and it's not going to like replace a software engineer, for example, because when things break down, you really need to know why it happened or how I can fix it. So like it's going to be different kinds of jobs, and I see the only thing to work on to make it less doomsday is like since the field itself is like rapidly advancing, you need to like also make the society and the people advance at a slightly faster pace than it is going right now, which is, I think, very difficult. But I think that's the only way how people would stop perceiving it as something that is detrimental to them as a person, like as an individual.
Right.
So there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff we've done. Like I think in general, there's a lot of advancements that's happened just in the last 5 years, like from around 2018, 2019 to now. There's a lot of things that's happened.
Right.
What
The
what was your
second part,
second part of the question?
yeah, second part was related to like an actual biological brain and an artificial brain converging towards similar, like more and more similar as research
Oh
continues.
yeah, human-like.
Yeah, ethical
Human-like
point.
systems and ethics. So I
What
know
is your
that there's this whole uh, like a research field where people discuss about AI ethics, and it would have to do a lot more also with like how policies in the government are implemented, which reminds me of this very strange thing that happened, I think, sometime last year, where there were like a bunch of scientists who wrote a petition saying that, hey, like AI is growing too wildly, too fast. We need to stop research right now. And they like wrote like a letter, and a lot of people signed, like a lot of major scientists, like half of, no, I would say really a lot of people were like, okay, we are going to stop AI research for the next six
There are
months.
some significant names
What?
there, so
Yeah, like what the, sorry, yeah, right? And of course it did not work. So I don't think that is an approach to like do things. But the ethical way to do it would be actually, which brings me, the ethical way would be actually again to educate people. Like if you know how things work, you will not be afraid of it, and you will know like where to draw the boundaries and where not to, instead of giving it to like a bunch of people who can decide, okay, this is where we draw the ethics line. So if you know a lot more about how to use these systems, it might be
Hmm.
like possible for more ethical use of it by an individual.
Moving back 6 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
just before you went into IISER. So first of all, how challenging was it, especially as a girl, to convince people and tell that I'm going into this field of research? It's like I'm going into academia. I'm going to research in India, and then applying for like IISERs and other places?
So for me, I was actually pretty sure that want to do I did not want to do medical or engineering. I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to pursue a career in research. Uh, and all I did know was I did not want to do engineering and I did not want to do medical. Although there was a little bit of
Hmm.
parental pressure on pursuing medical because of some kind of social prestige or whatnot. But like once I told them that look, this is like a very nice institute and it's like a Indian institute where the education is good and like I can take care of myself, I'll be getting scholarship. They were like, okay, just I mean, if you
Hmm.
really want to go for it, you can. And
Hmm.
so in that way, my parents were supportive. And I don't think they understood what a research career was. Neither did I. So it was all we were just we ball. Um, and it kind of worked out. And yeah, so as a woman, I think one of the things that was challenging was to get more. I don't know why, but there was a lot more stigma and lot more uh, like people around me who were not doing quantitative things. It's a thing that people were not going into tech so much. So it was like there's an aspect of peer pressure that makes you want to do things. So that was like very much lacking.
Hmm.
Um, but which also meant that in terms of being at IISER, it really did not matter, like after school and so on. So there, I think the exposure was really good, although the number of women are not a lot in science colleges in India. So that was good, and that kind of like during my school times, I did not learn programming or anything to do with programs. And like during IISER, I picked up programming, and right now, basically, that's all I do, which is uh, which is I think quite a bit of a journey. And
Hmm.
yeah,
So for this question, I usually describe, because the previous people were from IISER Bhopal, I could like tell what was the curriculum structure and what kind of coursework and research and stuff
okay,
they did on the
yeah,
way. So maybe
yeah,
you can start off with telling how IISER's Pune's structure and stuff was,
yeah,
and what
okay,
you did to lead your
yeah,
way into the master's thesis.
yeah. So like usually IISERs are meant for natural sciences and basic sciences, right? And right now I am not doing something that is basic science. Basically, I'm doing more related to engineering. I was like basically I'm also affiliated to the electrical engineering department at this point, which is
Hmm.
crazy. So I think the transition is
Interdisciplinary.
it was not, yeah, very interdisciplinary. And I think like IISER Pune, the kind of curriculum and the kind of training that we had was very conducive for it, because like for me, I did not graduate with a particular focus or a specialization during my BSMS in IISER Pune. And IISER Pune
Hmm.
used to have the flexibility of not choosing a specialization like physics or chemistry or anything. You could just graduate
Hmm.
having a BSMS in science, which meant that you
Hmm.
can take very interdisciplinary courses during your third and fourth year. And during the first 2 years, of course, it's going to be all the courses from across disciplines, like from biology to earth sciences and so on. So I
Hmm.
think the first 2 years helped me like pick up like programming and my in general interests with neuroscience. And later on, I was able to like slowly figure out what kind of courses I need to take so that I can transition to more applied and slightly related to engineering things. And the aspect of having like 1 year time during your master thesis, where you just have to do your master thesis during the last year, was very good, because that year actually helped me transition from basic science to doing more applied stuff. And
Hmm.
the option of actually doing it anywhere was also good, which meant a lot of people, including me, went to different places across the world where they were doing the kind of stuff that was not happening at IISER Pune. So that kind of flexibility was very nice. And I still tell a lot of my colleagues and some of my work friends and all of them that a lot of interdisciplinary interests that I have, I would attribute it to the kind of training that IISER provided with us. Because a lot of people I work with are like computer scientists or physicists or something like that, and then some computational neuroscientists, and they're always a little bit surprised that, oh, like you do know a little bit of physics as well, so much. And yeah, so that's nice.
Were there any specific like terms and conditions for doing a project outside, or you're just free to go anywhere, wherever you want at the end of the year?
So they were like, if you can figure out your finances and you can write a thing saying that IISER Pune is not responsible for any of the issues that arises, then they were fine.
Hmm.
It's basically you're
Okay,
on your own, kid.
great.
So that was the only thing, and they also had just a timeline so that things could move properly. So if you had to do your thesis starting from May or June of a particular year, you had to have all the documentations and things confirmed by, I think, Jan or Feb, so that they know exactly the number of students who are going to register, and if you need any of the processing for visa or whatnot, you can have sufficient time to do that as well. So that that was the only thing. So you had a timeline, and then you had to give like certificate, not a form signing that you have the money required and so on, and then you can go anywhere. So I think a lot of people
Nice.
also went to the US to do their thesis if they got funding to do that. And the good
Hmm.
part is I don't know anyone who went on their own money. So that is something that IISER would not allow. Like, I mean,
Right.
they
You
would,
need to
they
show that
would.
you have funding.
You have some funding. I mean, or you can like say that I'm funding myself, and I don't think that was the option that was very favorably agreed upon from the department.
Other than studies, what were your hobbies, extracurriculars? How was the like college culture in IISER Pune?
Actually, yeah. So now that it's been quite some time, nice to revisit and think back on all the hobbies that I used to have. Uh, I yeah. So at IISER, actually, I developed lot. I think I developed character in IISER, right? So before that, it was just just being in school, writing the exams, and so on. So
Naive school
uh,
kid.
yeah, exactly. So IISER basically gave me all the personality, or I think who I am today. Picked up hiking, badminton. Used to like also tried out like athletic meets and so on. A lot of, what do you call it, impromptu like talks and presentations. That is also something that I realized I enjoy at IISER. Yeah. So, and I think the part since IISER Pune was like located in the city itself, so we had a lot of things to do like in the city of Pune. So we used to hang out a lot outside in the city, and
Yeah, all this
small
a good area.
yeah, yeah, it's a nice like young area, like a lot of,
Hmm.
because the area that IISER Pune is in also has a lot other research and university places, like so which means like the area is catered to college kids, so which was also pretty good. But I would also say that I feel like now that I'm not in IISER anymore, that we did a lot of studying and research at IISER than I thought we did, which is something that I would have never thought when I was at IISER. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing enough. This is like I'm enjoying too much,
Hmm.
and so on.
They're like
Yeah.
casually just
Casually, people are
throwing them out
involved in like 5 projects
there.
at a time, and so on.
Like when
Yeah,
I visited IISER Pune, I was intimidated seeing the kind of people I was meeting. Like I'm doing 3 projects here, there. Like people are literally in second, third
yeah,
year, and they were doing such
yeah.
fancy research. And
So
yeah, that was.
that was a good thing, and I realized the importance of having a place where everyone is really driven to do things. Makes, if you are not a driven person, it also like really pushes you. Like the importance of being in a place surrounded by people doing things you want. So that is
Hmm.
something I did not realize or value before IISER. And like even like from the first year, kind of you're pushed to be part of some project or like develop some skills, improve on your coding or so on. Like from the first year, winter or summer, which is like super early, I think.
Did you do any summer projects related to what you're working on, or
So I did
explored
not
other
do
fields?
any summer projects on any like what I'm working on, but I explored a lot on related to neuroscience. Like basically, it was like a
Okay.
process of converging on what aspects of neuroscience I like and what I don't. I've been mostly involved with the computational side of things, but from different angles. I think one of the credits goes to the pandemic. While I really did want to be a part of experimental groups at some point during my third year, and then there was the pandemic, so didn't really get a chance to explore that very much. But I mean, I'm fine with it right now. So during my first year, I did some neuron modeling, like how
Hmm.
the firing of neurons happen and so on. That was in Chennai, where uh, the Institute of Mathematical Sciences. So that was like a
CMI.
also IMSC, so Institute of
IMS.
Mathematical
Okay.
Science. So over there they have like a small but very nice like research network of people
Hmm.
doing physics, statistical things, and a little bit of neuroscience as well. But then I explored a little bit of cognitive science,
Hmm.
where basically you deal a lot more with human participants and responses and so on to try to figure out how memory works or how uh, people make decisions and so on. So I was part of the decision lab at IIT Kanpur. So that was like I spent quite a lot of time, and that was also a good research environment because the group offered me a lot of flexibility on just like reading and exploring topics that I found interesting. And then I realized that okay, maybe cognitive science is not for me. Um, then I did a little bit of robotics uh, because
Hmm.
I wanted to do a lot of applied
Oh,
stuff. So the
so
robotics
like
was
yeah,
really fun.
you have a collective like you have picked up skills on the way,
Yeah,
even
exactly. So
though it's
I've
not
picked a lot of
directly.
skills on the way that IISER doesn't really offer you in terms of coursework, but it gives you enough
Hmm.
freedom to like pick it up with like whatever courseworks you have. For example, like a lot of AI, like machine learning that I picked up was really backed by statistical inference and like data science things that was going on at IISER. So that was like the
Hmm.
foundation. So IISER provided decent foundations for your basics that you can build upon.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so a little bit of robotics. Then I kind of converged on okay, let's try neuromorphic computing for my thesis. And now I think I would like to do slightly move away from neuroscience, so not neuroscience, neuromorphic computing. I would like want to maybe apply these machine learning models to understand neuroscience and neuroscientific processes and so on. So that
Hmm.
is something that I think I would like to do for a PhD, for example.
Moving on from IISER to your transition into Europe, how did you find out about the project, and how was that move from like going from India to a different culture in Sweden? First was
Uh,
Sweden, right?
First was Sweden. So I was looking for like master's thesis, which was like combining neuroscience and like the robotics related things that I had picked up at that point. So I wanted to
Hmm.
like combine these things, maybe neuro robotics or whatever. So those were all things that I was applying to. Basically, all I did was reached out to everyone I found interesting, and I did reach out to quite some people, like quite. considerable number of people. The very nice part about a lot of European researchers is that they reply, and they do reply like in a timely fashion. Like you can expect maybe 1 or 2 weeks. You can expect a reply, even if it is like, hey, sorry, thanks for your message, don't have funding for you right now, all the best for your search, and so on. So you do hear back, and like I got my master thesis opportunity when I had like emailed one of the like top-notch researchers in this neuromorphic field, asking if he had any positions, and he was very nice and had a conversation and everything with me, and he told that I don't think we have funding right now, but hey, these are my colleagues, they might have something for you. And he recommended to reach out to some people, which is something that I have never seen happen much in India, where like people seem a little too busy and occupied and so on. So this was very nice. And through his recommendation, and one of the people I reached out was my master thesis supervisor finally. So, which means like I was finally able to actually do things related to neuromorphic computing. Yeah. So that was like getting into and like getting a project, right? So actual project itself was something that I had to formulate and design and so on, which is usually not the case at many other places. Usually when people hire for master thesis students, it's the PhDs who might need a little bit of assistance for doing some things, which is very common in Europe, where like they already have like a broad project outline on what they want to do. So this is slightly on the exception side, where you reach out and say, hey, I am interested in this, do you have something for me? And then you like craft a project that you might want to work on. And I think again the IISER attitude of being involved in research and coming up with research questions was really helpful, which meant like it was not a very strange process for me to actually come up with a research question and do background research and so on. As for my second project right now, like from my master thesis, I again found it through the network of my master thesis advisor. So I think it's hard to accept, but even in academia, I don't think merit goes a long way. Network goes a longer way than merit does. So if you're part of the right networks, you can like get really great positions at places. It's a matter of luck as well, right? Like where you land up. It's just not like, hey, I am not good enough. It's just like you're not at the right place doing the things that you are doing. So that's how I ended up in Germany. But the transition process was actually not very straightforward, because you had to figure out a lot of like visa related issues and all of that. And Sweden was a place that not a lot of like alumni had gone, so there wasn't like direct points of contact where I can help. And when you go to these like complicated visa websites and so on, when you don't find, you are like not in one of those bin categories where are you a student, are you an employee, it becomes slightly more difficult to figure out how to get a visa. So that took some time, and settling in Sweden also, I would say, took some time, because now you are doing a master thesis full time and you are also learning to live abroad alone in a new country, which meant like initial 2 or 3 months was basically maintenance level of research and a lot more effort into trying to figure out how to live life optimally. So the best thing about my experience in Sweden was I had such a supportive supervisor that he acknowledged that this is part of the scientific process, that science happens in between life and it's not the other way around. Like which meant that he was always understanding about like time it took to do things, because I was busy with some other things and so on. And he was like super supportive in trying to figure out accommodation, for example, and so on, which is like not very common issues that other supervisors would be worried with. So that was good. So that is something that I think I would appreciate. And if I ever become a PI or a supervisor, I would keep this in mind, that science happens in between life and not the other way around.
So when you moved from Sweden to Germany, was the work style and living conditions very drastically different, or were you like by that time trained for handling life in new countries? Was there a significant cultural shock?
Yeah, so there was the cultural shock when I had during Sweden was that the work-life balance was really emphasized. So that was like really stark, which meant that like after like 6 p.m. or something, like the whole corridor was like empty. The whole office floor was empty and nobody would be there. That was really strange because like at IISER at 2
Hmm.
a.m. you would find people working on things, roaming around the campus and so on. And that was like normal behavior. And here, like people
Yes.
would go home, they would have hobbies, they would hang out with friends. So, which meant like now I had to readjust what it means to do research. So that was a little bit drastic when I was in Sweden. And I got to know from my colleagues who are European that that is kind of the norm in Europe, just at slightly differing percentages at different countries. So I had an idea of how the work culture is going to be in Germany. But the only difference I found was that in Germany, things are a lot more
Hmm.
hierarchical. So there's like a director, and then there are like multiple PIs, and then they have junior scientists. There's like a lot of hierarchy, and at many places, you would not ever be able to have a conversation with the director apparently, and that was not the case in Sweden. Sweden had really
Hmm.
flat hierarchies and smaller groups, and they wanted it that way, for example. So that was slightly different. But since my German supervisor had moved from the US, so he had a lot more US based supervising style where he did not care a lot about the hierarchy. So you could like approach and talk to him anytime and so on, which was nice. But other than that, I think since I had solved a
Hmm.
lot of the living on my own part and knowing what to expect for research, so it was slightly easier to like deal with research right from the start in Germany. So that was okay.
As a woman living abroad, uh, what was the significant cultural and shift and the significant differences you see in educational and societal practices in India versus maybe Sweden and Germany, if there are significant differences?
Yeah. So like in Sweden, something that I noticed was that there's like when people say, "Oh, we are trying to like make gender equality happen and so on," you can actually see it reflect in the society in Sweden, which was something that was very surprising for me. Like for something as simple as like people always being conscious about like doing things on their own and not requiring support from others for any particular task, to like finding a lot more people in STEM related fields working with you. So that was something that was surprising. And the the good part also was that there were a lot more opportunities to upskill yourself, like workshops, for example, and like courses and so on that you could take. Like I took some of them when I was in Sweden, which were like taught by women, and then they were like a lot helpful to navigate spaces where women weren't very prominent. So I feel like in terms of initiative, there's a lot more initiatives going on in Sweden. In Germany, I think it is similar.
Hmm.
It's not drastically different from Sweden. But like I have not personally been part of any of these things. I have been busy with other things. So that was the difference, I would say, in terms of doing things in India versus like in Sweden or in Europe.
Hmm. What will be your general advice for someone who is just at their end of their masters, is looking out for proper programs, and they want to do something in research abroad? What is your general advice to them?
I would say be sure you want to go into research. I think a lot of people say this, and one of the ways you can be very sure you want to go into research is like if you are try out, like for example, I've been doing a RA, just try out a research position. It's not very hard to get. You can apply to existing positions, but if that doesn't work out, you could also like just email people you find interesting. And if you're not sure about research, it's also okay to like spend some time in industry or doing some kind of job. which I think a lot of people here do in Europe, and it's appreciated because it's seen favorably in your CV, because then the people who are hiring you for PhD know that you are here to do research. Definitely, that's something that's a positive sign instead of, I think, seen poorly in Indian context. And I would also say that, the transition time to find out what you exactly want to do is not so bad. Like, it's fine if you are doing something that you exactly don't want to do at this point until you are doing the thing that you want to do. So if someone does not find a appropriate position, it's fine to wait it out. So that's something I think I would tell people.
Yeah. On that note,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Okay. So I think it's time to go,
for
right? On that note, yeah.
dedicating time today to speak about
And
your
also, our
work.
internet connection is causing us to go. Thank you so much. Hope everything works
I
out
hope
when you make this
this comes
video
out
come
well.
together.
And if you have any doubts regarding, neuroscience and yeah, you can put it on the comments. So yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Nice talking
Um,
to you too.
so yeah, I'd like to,
Have a nice
I guess I'll end it here.
evening.
All right. See you. Bye bye.